replied Helena. "What is my influence, or my weak wisdom, compared with yours?" "You have the wisdom of love," returned the Minor Canon, "and it was the highest wisdom ever known upon this earth, remember. As to mine, but the least said of that commonplace commodity, the better. Good night." She took the hand he offered her, and gratefully and almost reverently raised it to her lips. "Tut!" said the Minor Canon softly, "I am much overpaid," and turned away. Retracing his steps towards the Cathedral Close, he tried, as he went along in the dark, to think out the best means of bringing to pass what he had promised to effect, and what must somehow be done. "I shall probably be asked to marry them," he reflected, "and I would they were married and gone. But this presses first." He debated principally whether he should write to young Drood, or whether he should speak to Jasper. The consciousness of being popular with the whole Cathedral establishment inclined him to the latter course, and the well-timed sight of the lighted gatehouse decided him to take it. "I will strike while the iron is hot," he said, "and see him now." Jasper was lying asleep on a couch before the fire, when, having ascended the postern stair, and received no answer to his knock at the door, Mr. Crisparkle gently turned the handle and looked in. Long afterwards he had cause to remember how Jasper sprang from the couch in a delirious state between sleeping and waking, and crying out, "What is the matter? Who did it?" "It is only I, Jasper. I am sorry to have disturbed you." The glare of his eyes settled down into a look of recognition, and he moved a chair or two to make a way to the fireside. "I was dreaming at a great rate, and am glad to be disturbed from an indigestive after-dinner sleep. Not to mention that you are always welcome." "Thank you. I am not confident," returned Mr. Crisparkle, as he sat himself down in the easy chair placed for him, "that the subject will at first sight be quite as welcome as myself. But I am a minister of peace, and I pursue my subject in the interests of peace. In a word, Jasper, I want to establish peace between these two young fellows." A very perplexing expression took hold of Mr. Jasper's face. A very perplexing expression, too, for Mr. Crisparkle could make nothing of it. "How?" was Jasper's inquiry, in a low and slow voice, after a silence. "For the how, I come to you. I want to ask you to do me the great favour and service of interposing with your nephew (I have already interposed with Mr. Neville), and getting him to write you a short note in his lively way, saying that he is willing to shake hands. I know what a good-natured fellow he is, and what influence you have with him; and without in the least defending Mr. Neville, we must all admit that he was bitterly stung." Jasper turned that perplexed face towards the fire. Mr. Crisparkle, continuing to observe it, found it even more perplexing than before, inasmuch as it seemed to denote, which could hardly be, some close internal calculation. "I know that you are not predisposed in Mr. Neville's favour," the Minor Canon was going on, when Jasper stopped him. "You have cause to say so. I am not, indeed." "Undoubtedly. And I admit his lamentable violence of temper, though I hope he and I will get the better of it between us. But I have exacted a very solemn promise from him as to his future demeanour towards your nephew, so if you do kindly interpose, I am sure he will keep it." "You are always responsible and trustworthy, Mr. Crisparkle. Do you really feel sure that you can answer for him so confidently?" "I do." The perplexed and perplexing look vanished. "Then you relieve my mind of a great dread and a heavy weight," said Jasper. "I will do it." Mr. Crisparkle, delighted by the swiftness and completeness of his success, acknowledged it in the handsomest terms. "I will do it," repeated Jasper, "for the comfort of having your guarantee against my vague and unfounded fears. You will laugh. But do you keep a diary?" "A line for a day, not more." "A line for a day would be quite as much as my uneventful life would need, Heaven knows," said Jasper, taking a book from a desk. "But that my diary is, in fact, a diary of Ned's life too. You will laugh at this entry. You will guess when it was made. Past midnight. After what I have now seen, I have a morbid dread upon me of some horrible consequence resulting to my dear boy that I cannot reason with or in any way contend against. All my efforts are in vain. The demoniacal passion of this Neville Landless, his strength in his fury, and his savage rage for the destruction of its object appall me. So profound is the impression, that twice since I have gone into my dear boy's room to assure myself of his sleeping safely, and not lying dead in his blood. Here is another entry next morning. Ned up and away, light-hearted and unsuspicious as ever. He laughed when I cautioned him, and he said he was as good a man as Neville Landless any day. I told him that it might be, but he was not as bad a man. He continued to make light of it, but I travelled with him as far as I could, and left him most unwillingly. I am unable to shake off these dark, intangible presentiments of evil, if feelings founded upon staring facts are so to be called. "Again and again," said Jasper in conclusion, twirling the leaves of the book before putting it by, "I have relapsed into these moods, as other entries show. But I have now your assurance at my back, and shall put it in my book, and make it an antidote to my black humours." "Such an antidote, I hope," returned Mr. Crisparkle, "as will induce you before long to consign the black humours to the flames. I ought to be the last to find fault with you this evening, when you have met my wishes so freely, but I must say, Jasper, that your devotion to your nephew has made you exaggerate here." "You are my witness," said Jasper, shrugging his shoulders, "what my state of mind honestly was that night before I sat down to write, and in what words I expressed it. You remember objecting to a word I used as being too strong? It was a stronger word than any in my diary." "Well, well, try the antidote," rejoined Mr. Crisparkle, "and may it give you a brighter and better view of the case. We will discuss it no more now. I have to thank you for myself, thank you sincerely." "You shall find," said Jasper, as they shook hands, "that I will not do the thing you wish me to do by halves. I will take care that Ned, giving way at all, shall give way thoroughly." On the third day after this conversation, he called on Mr. Crisparkle with the following letter. "My dear Jack, I am touched by your account of the interview with Mr. Crisparkle, whom I much respect and esteem. At once I openly say that I forgot myself on that occasion quite as much as Mr. Landless did, and that I wish that bygone to be a bygone, and all to be right again. Look here, dear old boy, ask Mr. Landless to dinner on Christmas Eve. The better the day, the better the deed, and let there be only we three. and let us shake hands all round there and then, and say no more about it."